So we have a gun problem in this country. In the United States of America, that's an issue. It's currently a trending issue. Let's talk about it. Okay, so everyone's seen it all over the news, unless you're like me and try to really avoid the news as much as you can. If you're on social media, you've been bombarded with it. And there's been some mass shootings the past couple of days in the United States of America. One guy has brought some assault rifles, had some issues with Hispanics, Latinos, etc. I don't really want to get into all of that because he's not important. But what happened as it pertains to video games is for me in this channel. Now, I try to avoid political stuff. I know some past videos I have did dabble in it, but I'm moving away from that in this channel. But what I wanted to talk about is mental illness. Is that correlated directly with video games? In the past, we had the ESRB, and for those of you who don't know what that is, that's the rating system for video games. If you look at certain games at the bottom, they've got a rating, like M for mature. So if you're playing some of these newer games, a lot of these shooter games, violent games, quote unquote, those are going to have the letter M on them for the rating, and that means you've got to be 17 and up to purchase these games. So what happens is you go into a store like GameStop or Matt's Game Exchange, product placement there, right? You go into one of those stores, you've got to have some kind of ID to buy these games. At least you're supposed to. You've got to show a license, some kind of social security card, whatever, to say that you're of age and you can buy this game. Or have a parent with you to show that the parent's okay with you buying that game. That started way back in the 90s when I was coming up, where you had a game like Mortal Kombat. I think Mortal Kombat was the reason we have that, right? Doom and all these other games are out prior. You know, you're killing monsters and demons with, sawed-off shotguns. Okay, but you start killing other people, uppercutting their heads off and pulling out their torsos. Hold up, buddy. That's too much. It's too much. Now, mind you, we've got movies like The Terminator and this and that all out. And this is not me trying to point the finger at anybody. I'm just trying to get you to be in a space where in this time we've had all of these things kind of going on concurrently, but the violence and the gore got to a level where certain politicians wanted to interject and say, hold up, kids shouldn't be around this stuff. This is too mature for them. It's too graphic. But it's really on the parents. Parents, it's up to you to say, hey, this is not okay for my kid. And if my kid goes to somebody else's house where that is okay, they've got to know that my kid is A, not allowed over, or B, they can't have that exposed to my child. It's really on the parents. But the government, wanting to be the government, has their opinion on some of these things. So, speaking of the government, here's what the president had to say.
We must reform our mental health laws to better identify mentally disturbed individuals who may commit acts of violence and make sure those people not only get treatment, but when necessary, involuntary confinement.
But the American Psychological Association is warning against placing blame there. A statement from the association's president reads in part this, quote, routinely blaming mass shootings on mental illness is unfounded, and stigmatizing research has shown that only a very small percentage of violent acts are committed by people who are diagnosed with or in treatment for mental illness. The rates of mental illness are roughly the same around the world, yet other countries are not experiencing these traumatic events as often as we face them. One critical factor is access to and the lethality of the weapons that are being used in these crimes. Adding racism, intolerance, and bigotry to the mix is a recipe for disaster.
In his statement, the president also had this to say.
We must stop the glorification of violence in our society. This includes the gruesome and grisly video games that are now commonplace.
Yet again, a 2015 study by the Pew Research Center reveals about half of American adults with equal numbers of men and women play video games, whether on a computer, TV game console, or a portable device. But gaming market research company Newzoo found that 60% of Japan's population, 60%, played video games in 2016. And while the 2017 rate of violent gun deaths in the United States was 4.43 per person, Japan, which bans possessing, carrying, selling, or buying handguns or even rifles, had a violent gun death rate of 0.04. The New York Times also points out that in 2011, the Supreme Court rejected the claim that violent video games promote real-life violence when it ruled that California could not ban the sale of violent video games to children. In support of the verdict, conservative Justice Antonin Scalia wrote, quote, "Psychological studies purporting to show connection between exposure to violent video games and harmful effects on children do not prove that such exposure causes minors to act aggressively. Any demonstrated effects are both small and indistinguishable from effects produced by other media."
Okay, so what do you guys think of that? What are your thoughts? Now, if you're in my comments and you guys are giving your honest opinion and you see somebody's opinion you don't agree with, I implore you not to start some kind of battle or debate. It's not that serious. It is and it isn't, but I want you to engage each other cordially as possible. Because no matter what, whether you agree or disagree with certain people, we're all in this together. We've got to work together. We're all we've got, really. So try to be civil. I'm interested in some of your responses because even if you disagree with how I might feel, I at least want to understand you. That's how we should be as a people, in my opinion. We should say, hey, that doesn't make sense to me, but I want to understand why it makes sense for you. And even though you may not change my mind, I still want to understand so that I have a better idea of who you are and not lump you in a category writing you off as a bad person, okay? So let's move on from that on a tangent, right? Violent video games. Fortnite, Ninja has announced that he's moving from Twitch to Mixer exclusively. So maybe that means some of us can move over to Mixer too and get some of that shine, some of that limelight. Me personally, I've been looking at the Fortnite. I've promised you guys in other videos that I would jump on it, but in light of this news going on in the country, I'm kind of like, well, will this get the attention that I want? Is this timely? I'm not sure. I still plan on doing it though, because me personally, I don't feel like video games should be related to mental illness when it comes to gun violence and gun control and all that stuff. Because you can make that argument with almost anything. I grew up playing Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, but it doesn't make me want to go out and actually attack people. Now, when in confrontation, do those thoughts come to mind? You could argue that they do. So the last little bit of news we got is Nintendo. And we're not going to talk about the Switch today. Well, I guess we are still. The Nintendo 3DS, they've been saying that Nintendo is not dead, okay? But we all know that it is, okay? And if it's not, it's on life support, and they've pretty much buried it and gave it a private funeral, okay? And I say that to say, check this out, okay? So this right here is telling you the YouTube app is no longer be supported. And what I don't understand is why these companies remove the support entirely. Like, can you not just leave the app as it is and just not update it so that people can still use it? Probably not, and I guess I'm answering my own question. I think it's because once they update it on one platform, certain features aren't going to be available when they make these changes, but it's like, you don't have to change it across the board for everything, do you? The Switch, which doesn't have a microphone, can't take advantage of the microphone features that the mobile phone can take advantage of, right? So why can't they just leave it alone? I don't know. I just think that it's weird. It's just pretty much confirmation now that the window on the 3DS is all but expired. I haven't heard any new games coming out for it being released, so it is what it is. Lastly, we've got Microsoft. They're saying more single-player games are on the way. When I think of Xbox, I do think of multiplayer games. There's a handful of single-player games and RPGs that come to mind, like Fable, and really that's all that comes to mind right now. But there are others, okay? So they're coming to the Xbox One, and I'm assuming the next generation console as well, but more specifically right now, the Xbox One, which is still kicking and pushing. More single-player games. So I'm excited for that to see what they announce. Are these going to be ports? Are they going to be remasters? Remasters? I'm not sure. Is there anything that I missed this week? Let me know. I will be sure to talk about it in a future video. Like, comment, and subscribe. I thank you for all the support on the videos the last couple of days and weeks and months. It's been a slow grind, but while I have the time, I'm trying to keep pushing content and putting out content for you guys. Thank you for anybody who's supported anywheres. I appreciate that. I'm sure that if they're watching, they appreciate it too. See you in the next video. Captain Sensation.